Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope it's going well. This is going to be the astro weather for October 8th through the 15th, 2023. I'm titling this video Under Pressure. Don't panic, people. This is the week that everybody has been waiting for. It is action-packed. We have a lot of very, very intense transits that will be taking place, along with a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. Just a reminder, guys, there is lots of content on my channel. I already put out a solar eclipse video in Libra, so you guys might want to check my video library. I put that out probably about a week or so ago, along with horoscopes for October of 2023. So a lot of these aspects I do touch on, so if you need a little bit of extra assistance, check that out. Equally, make sure you're subscribed. Click that bell button below. If you're not already, please do. That way you're alerted as to when we have new videos coming out on the channel, especially because this Tuesday I'm going to be doing a video on Mars's ingress into Scorpio. There's just so much going on. I can't fit it all into one video, and I really like to do those ingress videos separate anyway, so we can kind of take a look at where Mars will be going throughout the entire sign of Scorpio and all the aspects that Mars is going to be making. Obviously very important because the North Node is in Aries, and finally we are going to get Mars into a sign where it can actually get something done, and we will get, I think, a little bit of a reprieve. So watch for that on Tuesday. And also, you know, like I said, watch those videos to help you navigate this next week. Outside of this video, we're also going to be having live readings on the channel. So those of you guys who are level 3 memberships who support my content, you know that you get a reading once a month. Well, this is a good time to cash in on it. I will not be doing it on Friday. I will be doing it on Thursday, and I will keep telling you guys that. I know I have it ingrained in everybody that it's Fridays, but your girl doesn't do eclipse readings. I'm not doing it. This eclipse is exactly in opposition to my moon, so I'm lying low. But I will be here Thursday. We're going to be doing readings at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Join me if you would like to get a reading. We'll be taking a look at how these eclipses are going to be affecting natal charts, and it'll be a donation-based reading. Even if you guys just want to hang out and see what other people's lives are having had happen because of the eclipse, you can join if you just want entertainment. Check out the community tab in my YouTube to be able to be alerted. Usually we put it out a day or two early, so probably Tuesday-ish I'm going to post the link so you guys can sign up. The eclipse live readings are generally very busy. We have a lot of people, so if you want to make sure that you get a reading, I really recommend signing up in advance and getting in the queue. All right, so like I said, the theme is under pressure this week for a number of reasons. Cue the David Bowie song. I'm sure all of you guys are like kind of laughing and crying as you're stirring your coffee or your tea because you know that this week is this build up to this really intense release point for a number of reasons. We are seeing, as of today, Mars is starting to perfect Sunday, Monday, a square to Pluto. This is a very intense aspect. It does represent some sense of purging, purifying something, clearing something out. Heat, frustration, anger, and sometimes even dangerous situations come from this particular square. Now, on top of that, we're also going to be seeing a solar eclipse in Libra that'll be taking place actually at the end of this week. That solar eclipse is the very first solar eclipse in the sign of Libra as a part of the new eclipse cycle in Aries and Libra that began in the spring of earlier this year. Yeah, South Node eclipse is a lot of like purging the past, right? But it's a new moon solar eclipse, so it's a lot of like setting new intentions, maybe about what we are removing, what we're working through, especially throughout these next 6 months, because it'll take about that long for this eclipse to mature. We're also going to be seeing the sun coming into conjunction with the South Node, which represents this loss of power, letting go, but also getting in touch with some of those karmic friends and relationships that come back to help us through this process. So lots of changing going on in regards to certain soulmates clocking in, clocking out. I've been talking about this all week, but you guys are really going to see this play out, I think, this particular week. So a heads up for those of you guys who have any placements 25 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. You guys are probably feeling this a little bit more intensely because as Mars is moving to the late degrees and it's squaring Pluto, it's activating these particular degrees in your chart. Also, if you have any planets at the late degrees of cardinal signs, you're going to be feeling this as well. And I don't think it's limited to just the cardinal signs. I think 0 degrees of the fixed signs, because it's really kind of cusping on you guys, you're feeling this pressure as well. So 0 degrees of my Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarians, you guys might feel a little bit of the sting, right? So while Mars comes into a square with Pluto today and tomorrow, that's really big energy because it's also very much connected to the North Node. So that North Node in Aries, which is really touching on where we're going on a personal level, what our goals are, what actions we're taking, how we are learning to be more self-sufficient. We're initiating something on a personal level. Now, while that North Node is going to be different for all of you guys, the energy is expressed the same. So take a look at where Aries is in your chart right now, okay? So that is basically saying North Node is there, eclipses are there. We're heading in that direction between now and the spring of 2024, where we're going to see more eclipses and a Mars there that's going to start up new things. And the North Node is really going to be in Aries at the beginning of 2025. So got a little bit more than just a year to be working through this. Now, wherever Mars goes, it's kind of highlighting what has to happen or what needs to be cut, severed, worked through, fought for, burned off, purged, cut, whatever, to be able to better kind of serve the North Node's purpose. So we've got Mars, which has been in the opposite sign. So it's been going through a place where it's debilitated. Some would even say like exiled, because Mars can't really do what it wants to do. It's not linear when it's in the sign of Libra. It's kind of bouncing around and it's fluctuating and it's kind of changing its mind. It's in an air sign that's ruled by Venus, so it can be a little fickle. And for me, the word that keeps coming up over and over, and I've seen it all week long, it's so bizarre. It's like, once you start to pick up on the little lessons from the cosmos, you start to see it in everyday life. But the word that keeps coming up for me is calibration. Calibration. What a perfect word for Mars in Libra, taking active steps to kind of rebalance something, right? And so whether that's tweaking something on the wall or perfecting something that you have been designing, or making tweaks in a relationship, that's really what Mars in Libra is about. Well, Mars has recently been in conjunction to the South Node, so there's been a lot of releasing anger, frustration, acknowledging where something has maybe been pent up. Can definitely be bringing up some passion also from the past. A lot of people have been kind of disconnecting also from relationships and partnerships with this transit. It also made an opposition to the North Node, so it's saying that we have to kind of cut off whatever we're too attached to, or what we're too codependent with, or who we're too codependent with, if it's inhibiting or kind of blocking us from being able to be more independent or self-sufficient. And now finally, it's coming into a square with Pluto at 27 degrees. So this is, for me, it's eruptive. That's another term that I would use, focusing on releasing something. Mars can be, when it's in a square to Pluto, expressing something that's been deep beneath the surface. So you think about how, Pluto penetrates, it goes down into the underworld, and Mars can be pressure. So it's kind of going down and applying pressure to release something. So it could be emotions, it could be toxins, it could be something that is potentially threatening, right? I think of like Mars-Pluto aspects. I've seen it in clients' charts where they go to have something cancerous removed, right? Or they go to have something, like a growth that may potentially be dangerous. Or I've also seen this come up where people are like, oh, we were surveying the land and, we found oil, and the oil came up through the ground. Very Mars-Pluto. So we're going to be seeing this expression of pressure in relationships, bringing up long-standing issues revolving around power struggles. Mars is forcing something out unconsciously, something that is shadow related in some type of situation. So the action in the Libra area of your chart is putting the pressure on Pluto, saying, okay, it's time to kind of come out with it. We're forcing you to kind of come out with it. so amazed to see some of this stuff happening out in the world right now, where people are really taking their power back and kind of banding together to say, you know what, we need to work together to expose corruption, or to finally, you know, come out with some of these shadow related things in government, right? Pluto and Capricorn. And so perhaps the pressure is enough to make people work together, to be more so diplomatic, to take action revolving around supporting one another. However, some of these squares can also bring some things that are so deep beneath the subconscious and unaware that it brings up anger, frustration, and sometimes even violence. So confrontations are likely. Sometimes we see, you know, little wars kind of break out in parts of the world with these squares. We definitely see more issues revolving around attacks and also gun violence. That does happen. But remember that Mars is moving through a sign that's an air sign. So could it be about, you know, our ability to express ourselves in an intellectual way? Are we seeing attacks on, you know, people who are being inhibited from being able to talk about what is right and isn't fair? Yeah, I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing a lot of injustice with Mars in Libra conjunct the South Node. But when enough people are willing to step up and go to bat, we start to see that coming together gives us the opportunity to really upend some of these long-standing like shadow monsters out in the world, but also in our own life. Now, Libra is relationships, partnerships, balance, law, fairness, while Capricorn is authority, long-standing power, career, and elders. So with Pluto being here, it's long-standing, you know, power struggles, things that have been kind of lurking in the shadows, and Pluto's getting ready to wake up. So I keep telling people, especially because this is conjunct America's Pluto, we're in like the final throes of our Pluto return. When Pluto wakes up, it's going to be, how do I explain this? It's almost like a boa constrictor, right? That's been holding on to something. And then Pluto goes direct, and then you start to kind of see the snake release something, right? And Pluto snakes, it's quite literal. We start to kind of see where the venom is being expressed and released, or where the muck is being cleared out of something, or the pressure revolving around feeling like that it wants to kind of grab a hold and strangle something. So we're going to see legal battles. We're going to see challenges. We're going to see you know, people having to stand up for their rights. We're going to see some really interesting things in courtrooms going on. That's about kind of challenging the powers out in the world right now. So yeah, power struggles, right? This aspect definitely indicates that, especially in relationships and partnerships. There can be issues revolving around control and dominance, and you can see two parties that are like vying for power or control. But this also brings up issues revolving intense desires, right? Mars deals with our desires. So there can be intense desires and ambitions with this aspect. People may be driven to pursue their goals at any cost, which can lead to friction and competition, but also ruthlessness. To see these two particular planets kind of duke it out, I do think it's going to be with words, with communication, with writing. So there may be attacks on some of these things. We might be feeling like we're doing more damage with what's coming out of our mouths than what we could be doing quite literally physically. But I think that this is still going to be an attack on speech and communication, because 27 degrees relates to Gemini, what we're writing, what we're saying, what we're talking about. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I've been compiling about this, but I'll go as far as saying I have been doing some research into a group that has been apparently taking thousands of what they're calling field agents and using them as a part of a research operation where they are allowing them to utilize like a software or program that's going to be scanning their search results, right? So thousands of people in I think the United States that are doing this, and they're doing this preemptively to prove that there is subconscious, covert search results that are coming up through Google that are prompting things in certain areas, and like certain people who might have certain affiliations with particular political parties are being pumped with like lots of really like quick search results and recommended articles and other things that are meant to kind of, you know, subconsciously affect people. Very Gemini degree, but also squares to Pluto. And while you might say, well, how is that a big deal? It is a big deal if it's potentially something that's ramping up, revolving around what could be an election year. But also, how is this affecting people subconsciously and their drives and their desires, right? Mars square Pluto, is it creating more friction or agitation amongst particular groups with people in particular areas? I'm going to be putting that into my like Mercury Scorpio video, but I have lots of information about it. It makes me feel really good about the fact that I switched search, networks. Like now I'm using Brave, but it also makes you kind of wonder why there is an attack on removing some people from having access, right, to creating content, to putting content out there, whether it's videos on YouTube or articles or Rumble or other platforms, and trying to divert some of that content from being put into Google, because Google, whatever you're searching for, generally it's going to bring that up, right? So if you start to kind of remove that content of people who may go against certain mainstream narratives, it's diluting the ability to be able to find anything that could potentially have truth. We're getting in some dicey waters here. So I'm curious to see what starts happening, because apparently this particular group is talking about how they're going to start basically filing stuff saying that they have proof that even from the midterm elections just the other year, that there has been stuff that has really greatly affected those elections, as well as the 2016. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I'll give you guys all of that information in my video, but got me thinking about the intense desire to win, the intense desire to have control, and the ability to say or do whatever you have to do, especially legally, Libra, at all costs. Now, we do see obsession, right? Mars and Pluto aspects can bring obsession. It can bring obsessive tendencies, and individuals can become very fixated on a particular goal or desire. And this could both be a strength or a weakness, you know, as it leads to unwavering determination, but it also could bring up destructive behavior. So I think of like the Mars square Pluto as, you know, people realizing that maybe they're in an abusive relationship, right? And it's through the communication and words. It could also be, you know, people who are in relationships with employers or bosses or companies, and they're realizing that, you know, the way that they're being treated or spoken to, or the way that they're expected to kind of, you know, work is potentially, you know, toxic, and it's not healthy, especially if there's like a lot of fixation in the workplace revolving around productivity and like what you're able to actually, you know, show up and complete. I think of this as like also some stuff that can be, unfortunately, very kind of domestic violence-y. I don't like saying that, but you know, this aspect happens a couple times throughout the Mars transit over a 2-year period, and this is the closing square. So, you know, Mars in the late degrees of Libra conjunct the South Node is already some relationships being in a tipping point, but then we start to see that square to Pluto, and it's like somebody says, I'm done, I'm ending the relationship, and you got like that crazy significant other that won't stop calling, won't leave you alone, coming to the house, and it could be something that could also be a little intense. You want to watch for that. That can definitely happen here as well. But I do think it's more with words. Even though Mars can be violence, I believe it's more with words than anything else, and threatening words or threatening to call the cops, right? Pluto can be about police officers. Transformation is the main key here, because Pluto's influence suggests that this aspect can be a catalyst of profound personal transformation and change. So it may be forcing us on an individual level to confront fears and shadow aspects, leading us to personal growth and evolution. So this can be wonderful because it can give us these aha moments where we're sitting with a counselor or a therapist, right? Libra, somebody is giving you some kind of advice or talking to you about taking action and saying, you know, I think it's time that we break through this, that we let this go, that we cut this off, that we finally sever ourselves from that relationship or that habit or that pattern that is not helpful, and helping you kind of get out of your own way, so you're finally tackling some of these long-standing Pluto and Capricorn kind of like shadow elements that might be, you know, holding on a little too tight. And conflict resolution is a theme, although I think that we're not going to see that more until Mars is coming into a trine with Saturn. But despite the challenges of this transit, the Libra influence of Mars does encourage individuals to seek compromise and balance within interactions. And it's possible that conflicts may lead to a deeper understanding of resolution. So it's interesting that this is happening, and then within a week we have a solar eclipse in Libra, So this could be like the blow up that happens that makes you realize like, whoa, I need to totally rework something in regards to a relationship or a friendship or a work dynamic or a health dynamic. So whatever kind of explosive things come up from this likely is leading you to the opportunity to recalibrate, find your center, right? So I want to read to you really quickly. I would like to read to you the Sabian symbol. And I also want to read from the archetypal universe. So let's do that first. Just some food for thought on combinations of Mars and Pluto. And let me know, do you have Mars square Pluto in your natal chart? How does it feel? Like, have you, found that you've had to like fight for a lot of things, or there's been a lot of like combativeness or some dangerous things that you've had to overcome in your life? I'd love to hear that. So the principles of Mars-Pluto: intense willpower and courage, drive, passion, determined efforts towards renewal and regeneration, volcanic catharsis, tendencies towards brute force and ruthlessness, overexertion, pushing too hard, vulgar or coarse sexuality. Passionate intensity, drive, willpower, determination, dynamic, purposeful action, qualities of assertiveness and decisiveness, courage and resolve, guts and gumption, capacity to blunder through, forge ahead despite opposition, the will to do, the soul to dare, high and sustained levels of energy, powerful reserves, strength and endurance, and ability to heal or transform situations through cooperative effort, profound physical renewal and regeneration, volcanic catharsis and healing sessions, feelings of sexual empowerment, primal energies, regeneration through sexuality. Interesting. Archetypes and spirituality: a sense of intense death, rebirth, struggle, volcanic forces, cathartic healing, convulsions, raging one's way towards freedom, blood and thunder, unleashing the fires of hell, fire-breathing dragons, Dionysian type of ecstasy, brutal aspects of birth and rebirth, Zeus and thunder, Poseidon, Thor, the clash of the Titans, the wrath of Achilles, the Greek slaughter of the Trojans, Old Testament battles and massacres. Interesting. During these transits, the Mars archetype can add energy, passion, and pointed direction to any themes associated with Pluto. Struggle, aggression are huge themes. So, I mean, just a little food for thought here, but, forceful, dynamic, intense, extreme, powerful, right? And so this kind of got me thinking, just some maybe prompts for you throughout this week that you might want to be thinking about is, who's got your back in times of pressure, right? Libra can be other people. And who's encouraging you to kind of go through the other side of the tunnel, to get to the end, to go through the darkness? Who's pushing you, who's cheering you on, who's encouraging you to be courageous, to not be afraid of uncovering some of the things that might come up? How can we be more mindful of our words? Like I said, Mars in Libra is very much fighting in an intellectual way. We've got that 27 degrees, which is about communication, writing. Are words threatening? Who determines what is and is not threatening? How can we be more mindful of the power of our words? And words have consequences this month. Now, this is also getting us to think about where we're being complacent, right? Because Libra can sometimes be lazy, right? No disrespect to Libras, but one of the shadow qualities is, being a people pleaser or wanting pleasure or caring a lot about what other people think. And there can be some surfacey stuff that can kind of come up with that. And I think where the pain, right, Mars-Pluto aspects can be pain. The pain in relationships can be where, we've become complacent, and that's actually creating the problems that are coming up right now. Where have we let certain relationships get out of hand? Where have we given our power away? And where are we finding that we're getting frustrated to the point of going like, whoa, maybe we have to end something or sever something because this has been something that's been going on for so long. Capricorn's about time. So I think I would also be focusing on, how you can tackle long-standing issues of not being or feeling supported. That's definitely going to come up, frustration, angry tears, things revolving around not feeling like somebody or something is supporting you. And look at what needs to change. And then ask yourself, are you afraid of change? Are you afraid of embracing this thing? Because, you know, Mars is it's essentially pissing Pluto off. The square represents, you know, Pluto kind of being attacked. And so it's going to take a partnership or another person or some kind of coach or somebody who's going to kind of cheer you on to be able to finally say, you know, we're enough is enough. We're going to finally kind of cut this off. Why? Because it leads to more independence, more freedom, more self-sufficiency, and also being able to heal oneself, because Mars is connected to Chiron in the North Node. So look at Capricorn, not just Libra. I know there's a solar eclipse in Libra. I know there's a lot of stuff happening in Libra, but I want you to look at where Capricorn is in your chart, because Libra is bringing the conflict, the action, the fight, the heat that's pissing Pluto off. And Pluto is about to wake up, and Pluto is heading towards the late degrees of Capricorn. This is the final square, so we will see actually in February of 2024, Pluto and Mars will come into conjunction, a very powerful conjunction. And guess what degree that's going to conjunct at? That will be aligning exactly at 0 degrees of Aquarius. The degree of the great conjunction that we had in 2020, we've seen Pluto go in and out of these degrees. That is going to be the revolution. That's going to be the freedom party. That's going to be the masses, you know, kind of waking up in a very powerful, potent way, because it'll be at 0 degrees. All right, so let me read you guys the Sabian symbol, then we'll get into the week ahead. As many of you guys know, when we read the Sabian symbol, we round up. So we're going to be reading 28 degrees of Libra. And this is a man in the midst of brightening influences. The keyword is responsiveness. The theme is moving towards the light at the end of the tunnel. The symbol speaks to the basic friendliness of life and when it's understood and accepted on its own terms. The image of a man in the midst of brightening influences symbolizes an awakening or change in the way circumstances are viewed rather than actual outer change in conditions. The emphasis is on mood and expectation and on the fact that success is the result of keeping forward movement towards the light at the end of the tunnel and refusing to give up in discouragement. The suggestion here is that attitude creates sustained circumstance. Life is what the individual decides to make of it. At its highest, this represents optimism, attunement with all life and unshakable faith, the highest purpose of all experience. Watch for self-defeat through inertia and brooding or a tendency to engage in magical thinking or hope that things will improve without effort. The accent is on a positive turn of events. Something that you see or hear today could give you hope. Things are looking up. The greatest advantage lies in staying the course and keeping your eye on the goal ahead. Give it a little more time and sustain yourself in the interim by focusing on the positive. Guard against giving up too soon. You could lose everything you have worked for. Stepping stones are hope, expectation, optimism, encouragement, reassurance, confidence, motivation, promise, anticipation, ambition, and a turn for the better. Well, what a great Sabian symbol, considering this is a pretty nasty transit. And even having looked at 27 about rising above it all, right? Transcending, keeping your poise. You know, I think that this is about recognizing, you know, like when to pick your battles, or knowing when to pick your battles. Mars, Pluto can be a very battle energy. And realizing that, you know, you're not going to fall back into old patterns. It's not always about fight and conflict, but it can be kind of going like, nope, I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to let somebody get a rise out of me, right? All right, so let's take a look at the week ahead. We're going to be starting obviously with today. So today is October 8th. So hello to all of my Sunday crew. Some of you guys who are astrologically sensitive, so if you're like an Aries rising or a Scorpio rising, you've probably felt this building since the conjunction to the South Node. So it's been happening pretty much this whole week. Even though the Mars-Pluto square won't really perfect until Sunday, it's in the skies today, all right? So watch out for those fighting words, guys. And we wake up today with Venus entering into Virgo. So Venus is actually in the late degrees of Leo. Very important because obviously the South Node is connected to, you know, Venus. So seeing Venus at that anaretic 29 degrees, that tipping point where there could be the most excess, the most drama, the most spending, But also I think it's interesting that Venus is now coming out of the shadow. So can we get a round of applause for the fact that finally, like, this shit show of a Venus retrograde is over. It's done, no more. Although you guys are going to experience the Venus-Saturn square. I'm looking at Ukraine, I'm looking at Hawaii, I'm looking at some stuff connected to that 29 degrees. I'm watching Trump because I know that he's also got that as his ascendant, to see what's happening with some of these people, because this is the grand finale of that retrograde. If you guys remember, Venus was going retrograde from the beginning of pretty much, I think, the second half of July. Yeah, all the way into the beginning of September, but the squares and the shadow was as early as June. 4 months of Venus in Leo, but we're about to get a rude awakening this month as Venus ingresses into Virgo, because it's going to be a complete change in relationships. Anyway, we're looking at the South Node and the fact that the South Node is unraveling relationships or things that are imbalanced that need to be changed or recalibrated. So Venus hitting 29 is saying, hold up, there's something critical going on with relationships the very same day that Mars is squaring Pluto. So some of you guys may find yourself this week at a crossroads in relationships, in a situation where you're having to go left or right, or you're having to choose between this or that. And I believe most of us are actually going to know this. We're feeling this today on Sunday. So Mars in Libra will come into that square in the PM hours, and the moon is in the sign of Leo. So as we watch what's going on today, the moon's going to keep moving. And in the afternoon, we're going to see the moon pick up a square to Jupiter and Venus go into the sign of Virgo. So things change evening hours, right? We're feeling big emotions with moon square Jupiter. And when the moon is in Leo, we want creativity, we want fun, we want passion. But the problem is that Venus is not really giving us that now that it's in Virgo, and we're watching the sun start to come into an opposition with Chiron. So we're feeling separate from another person. There is some sense of being like, okay, there's been too much togetherness going on. Like, we need a little bit of a break. Because as planets come and connect with the South Node, we're realizing where there can be too much companionship or too much with other people, or we're feeling maybe smothered. That can definitely be kind of coming up. So Venus moves into Virgo. So for those of you guys who are Virgo sun, moon, or rising, this is actually pretty positive for you because it's bringing the blessings and the sweetness of Venus to you. So it's great for your health, your appearance. It's great also for relationships and attraction type of energy. But generally speaking, Venus does not do as well in the sign of Virgo. So off the bat, not only are we feeling that 29 degrees of a tipping point in relationships, but Venus is connected to Mars in the South Node square Pluto. So some of us might be getting ready to call something quits. And then Venus begins to start to come into an opposition with Saturn. So today is a rather intense day, as is tomorrow. I kind of feel like get all of your excess, having fun, you know, being creative and romantic and all that stuff out of the way today or earlier in the day, because as you get into the evening, the energy starts to kind of change. So then we're going to take this to the 9th. And when we wake up in the 9th on the morning, Venus is obviously starting to come into this opposition with Saturn. And the moon is in the sign of Leo still. And really the two big things that you're going to see is that the moon in Leo will come into a square with Uranus in Taurus. And that for me seems a little emotionally destabilizing. Remember, the moon has connections to the stock market and things revolving around gambling and taking chances. So that moon coming into a square with Uranus makes me feel like there can definitely be a lot of action revolving around money markets and things of that nature. Not necessarily positive, because the moon is coming into a square with Uranus, so it's about people responding to what sudden changes are happening with banking, finances, investments. So it looks like it's going to pick up that square in the afternoon, and that'll be at 22 degrees. And that's pretty much the only other thing that's going to be happening. Venus in Virgo, but Venus has still yet to oppose Saturn. So then this is going to take us to Tuesday the 10th. And on this day, we see first thing in the morning, the moon's ingress into Virgo coming into conjunction with Venus. So generally Moon-Venus conjunctions are pretty sweet, right? It's waking up in the morning with, another person, lots of affection, maybe craving sweets in the morning. But Moon-Venus is kind of going like, what actions can I take to better nurture my health, my habits, right? So there's some kind of action-oriented thing here. Could this be that we're trying to reconcile? Maybe, because, Mercury has connections to the moon and Venus in this sign. And Mercury is actually starting to get closer to the sun in the south node. It's not aspected. The closest thing is a building opposition to Chiron. I could feel like some people feeling like they need more love, or they're not liking, it's like you order breakfast or coffee and you're like, something's off. It's not really hitting the spot. Something like that could be happening. But a lot of this is because this is when the Venus-Saturn opposition is going to perfect. And this is the day that I told everybody that it's going to be like record scratch. Oh, the shift is happening. Finally, after a back and forth with a relationship or a financial situation, something is actually coming to some kind of conclusion. Generally speaking, Venus in its fall and a Venus-Saturn opposition, that is kind of doubly challenging or troubling. And Venus is moving through a sign that deals with health. It deals with anything revolving around, people who nurture or take care of animals. I think of like, the potential nursing walkout, or I guess a union that might be striking. I think it was Kaiser Permanente. Is it Kaiser? Yeah, I want to say it's Kaiser. I think. I could be wrong. Let me know. But I know that there is some impending potential like nurses strike that's happening right now. So very Venus in Virgo, those who give service in the healthcare field. The opposition to Saturn seems to represent that they're maybe at odds with hospitals or with like businesses relating to hospitals or private care centers. I also feel like Venus being connected to relationships, this could be like that separation. So if there was a blow up, if there was some kind of friction with Mars square Pluto, there could be some people going, I need some space, I'm not really ready, or, give me some time, I don't really feel like talking, because Venus is moving through like a mercurial sign. So more difficult to relate, more difficult to kind of feel like certain things are hitting the spot, and feeling like some things or some people might be out of reach. So this is on the 10th. Now, Moon is really activating that, okay? So we're going to definitely be feeling that. And then we're going to see the Sun in Libra start beginning to oppose Chiron. So Chiron in Aries, healing our own wounds, dealing with what we need to do on a personal level where we're taking action to nurture ourselves. This happens to be at 17, so it can be about our inner child. It can be us working through self-esteem issues. It can be us working through things revolving around what makes us happy. So much of the season with all of these eclipse energies and conjunctions to the South Node is some people realizing like, I can be in a relationship, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I feel secure. I could be in a collaboration or a working partnership, but that doesn't mean that I feel supported. And so we start to kind of unravel and cut away all of the superficial things of I need to be in a relationship for the sake of, the relationship visibility and feeling like I am, grounded or centered in a relationship. Some people might realize that it is like an emperor has no clothes situation, that just because they're there doesn't mean you're getting what you need. So you might be feeling unfulfilled because Venus is opposing Saturn, and we're realizing like, it may not necessarily be working. And yeah, traditional astrology says Venus through the 6th house transits, or, some aspect between Venus and Saturn in these houses can represent separations or divorces. Tis the season with a South Node Libra eclipse. But I think the Sun in opposition to Chiron is where some relationship challenges are highlighting where we have a lot of work to do on ourselves. And so remember how I said, Libra season, there can be a lot of reflecting this back to other people. Be mindful that there's a lot of projection going on right now, and you might be feeling the very thing that you're telling somebody else they're doing, you're doing, and vice versa. And sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, this is a never-ending cycle, until we both separately kind of deal with our stuff. We're going to keep bringing this up and projecting this onto one another. So that can definitely be a theme. Now the Sun in Libra in opposition to Chiron aspect, that's going to be taking place overnight. So you're going to see that exactly take place overnight. and we're going to watch the moon keep moving through the sign of Virgo. So something that we're going to see in the morning on the 11th, so now this is Wednesday, is Mars is going to hit a critical 29 degrees. Okay, so this is, I'm sure you guys have heard me say this, nails on a chalkboard. Okay, I'm not a fan of Mars at 29 degrees. It makes me feel like I'm melting. I don't know, tell me what you guys think, but that's how I feel. And Mars is at that critical aneretic degree of the tipping point in a relationship, in balance, in fairness. I've heard a lot of people say, just kind of generally in independent media, like, oh, the world's at a crossroads, or we're at this tipping point with freedom and with legality and laws. And I have to agree, looking at the astrology, it would feel that way. That if people aren't starting to communicate and connect with other people and be talking about the fact that it's not so much about the left versus the right, or this country versus that country, but that as a whole, we are realizing where we have become potentially complacent, or too comfortable, or too agreeable, or just kind of going along with things because it has been safe, or it has offered us convenience. But I think safety and security and convenience, whether it's, with what's going on with laws or a relationship, sometimes does prove to be a nasty combination that leads to giving our power away, right, to someone or something else. And so that's the huge theme. So the micro can really much, I think, show what's going on in the macro. So where other people are fighting these wars in courtrooms, you might be, squaring off with your 5-year-old, being like, I need you to get in the car seat, or I need you to get in the car, we gotta go, or a back and forth that you're having with an in-law. It doesn't have to be, getting into conflicts with people in parking lots. It could be these small little struggles that you're having with people in the day-to-day, and recognizing where sometimes when arguing and having conflict and having some of this divisiveness becomes the norm, then we start to kind of see it repeating in relationships, and then it's kind of bleeding out to other areas of our life where we're choosing to be combative, we're choosing to be confrontational, we're not really being balanced and kind of fair and listening to an opposing person. And so I think that, this is definitely still playing out. The benefit, I think, on the 11th is that, we have the moon that's in a trine to Jupiter. So we are more so grounded and able to communicate, right? Because Mercury's in Libra. So it's saying, well, we're communicating, we're sharing, we're talking about our ideas, our belief system. But this 29 degrees is going to hover for about a day or two. And what it's reactivating was that April 2023 solar eclipse in Libra. So the reason why eclipses are also intense is sometimes we see eclipses that are somehow connected to one that we had 6 months ago. That is what is happening. So we want to watch when Mars hits 29 degrees. We want to watch when the sun hits 29 degrees. We want to watch when Mercury hits 29 degrees. Why? This is all in polar opposition to the solar eclipse in Aries, where you set some kind of an intention and you went, this is what I'm doing. This is my path. This is what I'm committing to. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing for myself. And guess what happens when you commit to yourself and you change the rules of the game? Other people don't always like that. They're not going to play fair. They're going to get angry. They're going to get upset. They're not going to understand why you have a boundary, right? They're going to challenge you, fight with you. They're going to be like, well, this isn't fair to me. Why are you doing this? It's going to be kind of difficult. So it's such unusual astrology. It's very, to be honest with you, it's very explosive. I would have said just seeing the Mars square Pluto would have been like, yeah, this is going to be a little intense. But when you factor in the fact that Mars is the North Node ruler, it's kind of debilitated, it's reactivating an eclipse, it's a lot of really big energy. And unfortunately, some people are realizing this week that in order to become the person that you want to become, you're going to have to shed some skin. You're going to have to let go of that old version of yourself. You're going to have to drop some of your relationships. You're going to have to drop laziness. You're going to have to let go and not care so much about what other people think. Trimming it all away, right? Removing anything that is superficial. That's the key here. I've loved to see this last week. I saw a video of Pamela Anderson talking about how she went to Fashion Week in France and how she brought all these beautiful clothes and all of this stuff. And then she was realizing that She didn't need to put on a bunch of makeup. She didn't want to compete with the clothes. She didn't want to be the most beautiful person in the room. She wanted the clothes to speak for herself. And I think very bravely, especially being a woman who's just always been seen as like a sex and a beauty icon, went to Fashion Week with no makeup on her face and wearing like couture clothing. And some of you guys might go, oh, that's superficial, whatever. But that's Libra, guys. That's Libra. So much of the South Node Mars in Libra is, why am I putting so much effort and focus on, you know, making something look good? Why can't I just be good the way that I am in my natural state? That's Aries. So you're going to see a lot more women with short hair. You're going to see a lot more women who are choosing to go makeup free. I think it's awesome. Being somebody who's a Libra moon, excuse me, a 7th house Aries moon and I have a Libra rising. There is this constant back and forth for me that's like, okay, got to be presentable, want to be professional. And then there's the other side of me that's like, what does it matter? It shouldn't matter what I look like in order to do the work that I'm doing. I should just show up and do the work that I'm doing. So it's also been something I've been thinking about a lot, about, you know, like cutting back on feeling like you have to look a certain way, let the work speak for itself, right? I don't know, just food for thought. So you guys will definitely feel that eclipse coming back up again. And when the moods come with the Mars square Pluto, the anger, the frustration, the meltdowns, it's important to recognize that you don't have to participate in the fight. You don't have to go toe-to-toe with somebody. There doesn't have to be a yelling, screaming match. Oftentimes, Pluto teaches us that there can be graceful endings, that it can be painless, that it can be about releasing, transmuting, letting go. And so for some relationships, this is the death rattle. It's the final gasping breath when you realize that the relationship is done or that something is over. And so I think this is when we're going to see it, right as we're coming into the dark moon. So the moon trine Jupiter is being optimistic about the ending. In the PM hours, we're going to see the moon come into a trine with Uranus. And then in the PM hours also, we see Mars enter into Scorpio. So we've got the moon trine Uranus early morning, actually, on Thursday the 12th. And we've got Mars moving into Scorpio. Rejoice! Well, it's my Mars return, that's why I say that. But finally, we have Mars in a place where it can do something beneficial, right? And so where, you know, Leo is where we create, we have fun, we're self-absorbed, we want to express ourselves, we want to fall in love. Virgo is where we kind of clean up all of that excess partying and we kind of sweep up the floor and we kind of get back into balance and on our schedule. And Libra is where we meet other people, but where we confront other people as well. So it can be about realizing that, you know, we had to kind of meet with somebody to discuss what is and is not working. And then Scorpio represents the transformation. And whether that's like we had the blow up, how do we change it? How do we work through it? How do we make it better? Scorpio is psychological, it's sensitive, it's psychic, it's also penetrating when it's in Scorpio. But it can also be that, okay, the blow up happened and now I go into transformation mode and, you know, now I'm open to the idea of letting something go and letting something kind of just die off. Scorpio is a water sign. It's not a fire sign, but Mars is the traditional ruler here. So where Aries is more about taking physical action and what you see out in the world and being very linear, Scorpio is art of war. It's, you know, knowing how to remove the poison, knowing how to use the psychic abilities to navigate. It's very intense and very passionate. But this is where I think that this is the turning point as we're going into Scorpio season, where we're like, okay, all of that happened. Now here is the financial repercussion, or here is the emotional or the psychological repercussion. 6 weeks, Mars will go through this sign. Quite frankly, it's going to be a wild ride. We'll talk about it in the Mars video on Tuesday, but for the most part, it starts off pretty positive because right after all of the breakdown, we start to see Mars coming into a trine with Saturn, which is stabilizing. And you'll see that on the 12th and also on the 13th. On the 12th, we're also going to see the moon come into a trine with Uranus. So there is going to be an opportunity for us to try to make sense or organize or clean something up and then adapt in some way. So there's changing circumstances and we're kind of being more so open emotionally. I love sound healing and frequency healing for this day because I think with Mars in Scorpio, the emotional body is ready to receive that. I think the trine to Saturn and Pisces can also be about water, hot baths, hot saunas, detoxes, drinking your hot tea in the morning. Mars in Scorpio can be about flushing things out within the system or the bowels. So that's wonderful with that trine. And then we're going to see in the PM hours, oh no, wait, I take that back. Hold on. We're going to see the moon come into an opposition with Neptune right here. So this will be on the 12th, still in the morning, sorry. We're going to see the moon oppose Neptune. So that's feeling like a little emotionally out of it. There can also be not knowing how to emotionally connect or feeling like a little disconnected. And what you want to lean into is going to be the moon trine Uranus and then the moon trine Pluto. So we're going to get an earth trine right before the moon goes into Libra. And this is like where you grab your herbs, you grab your crystal, grab your grounding mat, go outside, do a little yoga, do some meditation to help ground some of these energies out. All right, so then the moon is going to dip into Libra. And this is on Thursday. So, you know, this is kind of like the dark moon. And what I like to do leading up to a solar eclipse involving the South Node is like the day that the moon is in opposition, the day that the moon is in the sign before it goes into, so in this case, Virgo. I like to start getting everything ready to like declutter, to purge, to clear out. Like that's generally what I'll do. And the moon, like I said, making this nice earth trine, this would be the day on Thursday. If you're wanting to cut a bad habit, if you're wanting to clear out a relationship, if you're wanting to release something or let something go, this is the day that you're going to want to do this, okay? And obviously you can work with earth element, so crystals, but you can also work with water. All right. So then the moon is going to go into Libra, and this is where the eclipse energy really is going to set in, but I got to tell you, like, we're already feeling it. We start feeling eclipses about a week or two significantly in advance. So we've been in this for a little bit. And then that moon's going to go into Libra in the PM hours. And the aspects that it's going to make is interesting. So, you know, for me, you know, this particular phase is going to be about clearing something out in the last moment. And it can be conversations. It can be something we write down and then we burn. This is great for cord cutting, removing, clearing, but especially mentally because it's going to be in Libra. So watch what's going to happen when the moon on the 13th, we wake up on Friday, the moon is going to continue to keep moving through Libra. It's going to do some interesting things. First, it's going to start coming into conjunction with Pallas. So this is going to be about picking up patterns, right? And then in the PM hours on the 13th, the moon is going to start coming into conjunction with Mercury. So it could be Friday night, it could be Saturday morning. But as the moon starts coming into conjunction with Mercury, moon and Mercury in Libra is, can we talk about it? You know, how are you feeling? What do you think? You know, do you need me? I'm here for you. We're going to hear a lot of that stuff because Mercury is the mind. It's also communication and text messages and emails. And it's in opposition to Chiron. So it can represent where we're going through some kind of wounding and we've got somebody there who's here to support us. We've got a counselor, a therapist, a partner, a friend, a sibling, a neighbor who's like, are you good? Do you need anything, right? But on the other hand, it can be where we're trying to intellectualize relationships too much or feelings too much. And in doing so, we can either be caring too much for other people or we could be not caring enough at all. Right? So Libra will show you where you're kind of out of whack. Definitely with this many planets in Libra, there's a lot of tending to others, calling other people, reaching out for other people. But are we doing that as a disservice to ourselves? Right? Is it to a fault? Because it's opposing Chiron in the North Node. Anyway, I would assume this is also the final moments before the eclipse. That's like, are we calling it quits? You know, are we done here? Is this not working any longer? Because we're seeing, you know, Venus still kind of in opposition to Saturn and Mercury's coming into conjunction with that eclipse. All right, so then so we're now at the 14th, okay? So this is Saturday. And we're going to see Mercury in Libra oppose Chiron. So that's going to happen in the early afternoon. So that's wounding in terms of communication. And that's strongly tied into the solar eclipse. So the solar eclipse in itself is going to be 21 degrees of Libra. So when that eclipse comes in, right, you know, actions revolving around relationships, Mercury's in opposition to Chiron. There could be things being like, I really hate to say this, but, or, you know, I don't want to have this conversation, but I don't think this is working, or this isn't really fair to me, or this isn't imbalanced with me. Solar eclipses bring action and sometimes things that come out of the blue. It is a new moon on steroids, so it is about setting intentions about where you want to be in the Libra area of your life. So you have to look at what house that is and how that's going to play out for the better part of the next 6 months, where then in the spring of 24, this becomes a lunar eclipse in Libra. I would say 20 to 23 degrees, Libra, sun, moon, rising, or personal planets. You guys are going to be feeling this very strongly. Equally for the cardinal signs, you guys will be feeling this. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword because, you know, solar eclipses are new beginnings and generally they're a little bit more positive, but it is conjunct the South Node. So what you're going to find is that, you know, with Venus being the ruler here, because Venus rules Libra, it's 12th house to Libra, so it represents where something fades or is let go. And Venus is moving through a sign that deals with not being pleased or being particular or being picky or having issues with illness or, you know, sickness or health. Difficult aspect to have. Now in the PM hours, well, and also we're still feeling the Venus-Saturn opposition, so that's also an indication of separations. In the PM hours, this is going to be a solar eclipse that's still going to kick. Because a few hours later, then the moon conjuncts the South Node, so it's about dissolving something or emotionally maybe disassociating. That can happen. It can also represent, you know, there being still a bit of releasing and letting go on the back end. So even into the evening, this is still moving. And what it's going to also do is this solar eclipse and the moon is going to in conjunct Neptune. And so this is why I say it's like dissolving. It can bring isolation. It can bring a sense of disassociating, especially with the moon conjunct the South Node. In a natal chart, that can mean somebody who like gets really moody and they don't know why and they don't know how to move through that. And, you know, it's hard for them to find their emotional balance, or you'll ask them, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. But they don't really talk about their emotions. So there's some stuff that's going on and people can be like shocked and they don't know how to emotionally relate. And then we're going to see the moon come into a square with Pluto. And that's going to be in the PM hours. So all day Saturday, this is a day for the books. This is a day that you really want to be paying attention to what is going on. I would keep my schedule light, especially if I had the later degrees of the cardinal signs. You are also going to be seeing then the next day, the moon is going to go into Scorpio, where it's not as comfortable, right? Because it's moving into like a Pluto-Mars sign. And then it immediately conjuncts Mars, which is also about fighting, conflict, anger, agitation. Now, it is in a sign that deals with sex, so there can be passion. People can be intensely, you know, making up. There can be a sense of people also being a little flustered, agitated, or feeling rushed. Thankfully, this is all trining Saturn. So I like the fact that Mars has been trining Saturn and we're committed to the idea of changing or transforming something or healing something. Setting times revolving around our goals or what we're hoping to achieve. But this tells me that Sunday is still going to be a little intense there. All right, so then the moon's going to keep moving. And we're going to start to see next Sunday on the 15th, the sun is also approaching the conjunction to the South Node, although that'll be a part of next week's kind of breakdown. That can also still represent something that's still kind of unwinding. And we're going to watch the moon start coming into opposition with Jupiter and Uranus. So it's like where there's been drama over the weekend, then people start arguing about, well, this is mine and that's yours, and you're dividing up stuff, and you're going back and forth about money or finances. And yeah, it can be very financial. And that's what is going to happen as Mars goes through Scorpio, where people are fighting for what's theirs, right? They're being really adamant about getting what their needs are. Setting the stage for what will be Scorpio season, where we're going to see a ton of planets in Scorpio make oppositions to Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, and then we're going to have a Taurus eclipse at the end of the month. So long story short, we're under pressure all week. The key here is to stay cool, calm, and collected, observe what needs to be released, recalibrate, constantly bring yourself back to center, try to stay in balance, try to also be somebody who is supporting other people, not adding fuel to the fire, right? We'll be back here on Tuesday. That's when I'll be doing my Mars and Scorpio videos. So once again, make sure you're subscribed. Thank you guys for your likes, your comments, and your shares. I really appreciate your support. You guys make it possible for me to keep creating here full time and bringing you guys all of these reports to help you navigate what's going on in the cosmos. Leave me a message. Let me know what's going on. How are you feeling with this energy? What are you doing to celebrate the eclipse? And how is it aspecting your chart? I'd love to hear what you guys are feeling throughout this next week. And if you guys like my content and you would like to get a personal reading with me, you can find my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. There I have all kinds of different options for readings. I have reports and I have personal one-on-one live on Zoom calls. I also teach tarot and astrology along with creating a bunch of astrological prints and other things. So check out my website for more. Sign up for my newsletter while you're there so you are alerted as to when I have all kinds of new product drops this fall and also specials that we're going to be doing for some of the products for the holidays. Anyway, until next time, I'm wishing you guys all a really positive week ahead. I will see you back here on Tuesday. Take care.